Thank you. Well, good afternoon. My name is Chris Collison. I'm chair of the Conservation Area Advisory Committee. I'd like to welcome everyone to this meeting on the 22nd of April 2021. The Conservation Area Advisory Committee, hereafter referred to as CAC, is a committee that's composed of city councillors representing different political persuasions, and also representatives of national and local amenity societies that are relevant to conservation. And the role of the committee is to offer advice to the City Council with respect to commenting on planning applications, listed building applications that are relevant to the topic of conservation, and also to offer general advice on conservation matters. This meeting is a public meeting. It is streamed live, but is also available for viewing subsequently. So I'm going to now hand over to the committee administrator, Lindsay Stevens, who will advise us on who is present at the meeting.
Good evening, everybody. I'm the Democratic Services Officer for this meeting. Chris Collison is the chair. Carol Craven and Maxwell Craven from the Georgian Group are both here. David Ling from the Derby Civic Society, Paul McLaughlin from Matthew Montague Architects, Chris Toomey, who is the Vice Chair from REBA, and Chris Wardle from the Derbyshire Archaeological Society. Councillors, we have Councillor Carr and Councillor Wood. The Conservation Officer is Chloe Oswald, and my two colleagues from Democratic Services are dealing with the technical side of the meeting, Karen Squires and Sarah Baines. Thank you. I'll pass you back now to the chair.
Okay, well, thank you for that, Lindsay, and also thank you for all those attending, and for the officers who are facilitating the technical arrangements in the background, which will help to the smooth running of the meeting. So we'll move on to the agenda itself. Are there any apologies?
Yes, Carol Craven.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Max. Any other apologies?
I have none.
No, okay then. I've no late items to be introduced from the chair, which was the second item. Third item, are there any declarations of interest?
Yeah, there's one from me, 22 to 23 Sadlergate.
Okay, are there any other declarations of interest? No, sounds like there aren't. In which case, what I'll propose then is that we adjust the running order of the agenda when we get to applications to be considered, which is item 7 on the agenda. And I propose that we take 22-23 Sadlergate as the final item, and that will just facilitate matters in terms of Chris leaving the meeting for that discussion where he's declared an interest. So if that's acceptable to everyone, we'll proceed on that basis. Thank you. Okay, so item 4 is the minutes of the meeting that were held on the 4th of March. Would someone like to move that they be accepted as a true record?
Yes, move it, Chair. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Second it? Yeah, thank you. And all those in favour? Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you. So that's the minutes dealt with. And then item 5 is the items determined since the last meeting. This is just really a report for noting. So can we note that, please? Thank you. Right. And then item 6, applications not being considered. This is the sort of full list of current proposals that are with the City Council at the present time, and it just is there for noting so that members have got a full picture of all of the proposals that are current at this time. So thank you for that. We can note that. And then we move on then to item 7, which is the main item on the agenda, which is the applications to be considered. I'm just flicking to that now, and as I say, I've proposed that we take them in a slightly different order by taking 22-23 Saddlergate as the last item because of the declaration of interests. Therefore, we're going to look at the second item on the list, which is Trinity House, 120 Green Lane. This is a change of use from offices, which are in use class E, to a house in multiple occupation, which is a sui generis use, often referred to as HIMOs, and this is at Great Green Lane. So Chloe, could you just describe the proposal for us, please?
Yes, certainly. Hello, everybody. So this is a planning application and listed building application for the alterations, as you mentioned, in association with a change of use, and includes the installation of new ensuite shower rooms, communal kitchens, and removal of 2 walls. So looking at the PowerPoint, which should be before you, this is identifying the location of the property and the front elevation. In terms of the front elevation, the impact proposals are new slate vents, the dormer, the windows and the secondary glazing are to be retained. However, I note on the schedule that the dormer is a UPVC window, and there's some repairs highlighted on the elevation. To the rear elevation, there are proposals for new extract vents to kitchen and bathrooms, which are cast iron air bricks proposed, and as you will note, there's some existing aluminium windows that can be seen on the rear elevation. These do not seem to be authorised, so just want to draw your attention to that. And also the dormer window is noted within the application as UPVC to this elevation also. Another thing which you may I wish to draw your attention to is that there is a chimney stack to the right-hand side of this elevation, but it isn't shown on the plan, on the elevation plan. Just looking at the section of the building, section through the building, you can see that there's sort of a lower ground floor, and then which extends to the rear, and the front entrance is on the sort of first floor, if you like, but at the ground floor level at the front. So that's just to give you an idea as we go through the different floor plans. So to the lower ground floor, the top of the plan is to Green Lane itself, and the rear is to the bottom of the plan. You can see there's 2 particular very small items of change apart from the use. So there's an enclosure of a plant area, there's an infilling of a door, and there's a removal of the WCs and the wall in between the current kitchen and WC to create a communal kitchen. You will have noticed on the application information a schedule of photographs showing you these different areas, which unfortunately I don't have time to go through them all, but I've selected a few just to give you, just as an aid memoir and to give you the flavour of things. So there are a few more photographs in a little more detail. Then to the ground floor, you can see that there's 2 ensuite enclosures and a proposed new wall within this particular space. Here's some photographs showing these areas and where ensuite shower rooms are proposed. The ensuite shower rooms, where there are cornices within these rooms, are proposed to be pods rather than full height. Where there are no cornices, the application states that they intend to be full height. And first floor plan, once again, there's infilling of 2 doorways and the installation of 2 en-suites. Once again, this shows you photographs that you would have noticed online where those will be situated. Onto the second floor, so the top floor, there are walls to enclose the current staircase, and once again installation of en-suites, as well as obviously kitchen installation. And here's some photographs showing the spaces that are being adapted. And that's a summary for this application.
Thank you very much, Chloe. Well, can I invite comment from committee members, please?
It seems to me that there's minimal change, really. I think the pods bathroom en suites will need to be dealt with quite carefully, but in essence they can be reversible, I guess. And it would be nice to see the aluminium windows replaced at the rear, which I think you said didn't form part of the application. But overall, it seems to me to be okay in terms of its impact.
Thank you, Chris. Are there any other comments?
Chair Paul McLaughlin. Yeah, I agree with what Chris has just said. There is the PVC window as well at the top floor, which could do with some attention. I noticed that previously there was on the application there was another scheme where the pods for the en-suites cut across the existing chimney breast, and they seem to have been amended in this scheme, which is quite acceptable in my opinion. So I would support that.
Yes, Chair.
Yes, thank you.
David Ling here. I support the application as well. I agree with what's been said.
Yeah,
I think it's really good to see these sort of buildings brought back into residential use. I'd been happier to see a complete house, but this is pretty close to it, so I would endorse what's said.
Okay, thank you, David.
Can I just say a few words, Ian Goodwin?
Yes, please.
The only thing I was a little bit concerned about was all these air bricks that are popping up all over the rear elevation for the extraction. I'm just wondered if there's any chance that they could have a communal extraction system rather than individual air bricks all over the elevation.
Okay, right. Thank you, Ian. Any other comments?
Yes, Chair.
The only comment I have on this one is
Yes.
the rather sloppy heritage statement. It's a theme which I've noticed since I've been on this, that either you get no heritage statement or they're pretty poor.
Right.
That's my only comment. I don't really have any strong feelings one way or other about the application.
No. Okay then. Thank you.
Yes, Chair. Sorry, it's Councillor Carr. It's a query really. The staircase that's been boarded in, is it intending to leave that with the spindles enclosed? Because I noticed at the top they're still out, and it would be rather nice if they could expose them again. But I wasn't clear to me from the drawings whether they were going to leave them in or not.
Chloe, can you help on that point, please?
Yeah, I mean, I think looking at the drawings, they are proposed to be enclosed within a fire protection wall to enclose the staircase. So that's the proposal as it stands at the moment.
I guess that's for fire regulations purposes as well. Okay. Thank you, Chair.
It is.
Thank you, Mike. Okay. Right. If that concludes comment, then we've got two aspects of the existing building that are of concern. One is the aluminium windows on the framed on the rear elevation, and the dormer window UPVC. We could ask officers if they could see if the scheme could be improved by dealing with those issues. I think it was mentioned that the former was actually an unauthorised situation. So perhaps we could ask that there's no objection to the proposal, but could we ask that those aspects are improved? And similarly, with respect to the comment about air bricks, that we could ask officers to investigate with the applicants whether some improvement could be made in respect of that also. Okay then, thank you. So it's no objection to the proposal, but those matters of detail perhaps could be just looked at to see if we can achieve something better. So thank you for that. Are you okay with that one, Lindsay?
Yep, fine, thanks.
Yep, okay, so we'll move on then to the next item, which is at 3 Lavender Row, which is a single-storey rear extension to the dwelling house. Storeroom is mentioned, with some roof alterations. This is in the Darley Abbey conservation area. So, Chloe, could you now describe this proposal for us, please?
Yes, certainly. As mentioned, 3 Lavender Road, Darley Abbey, Grade 2 listed, obviously in the Darley Abbey Conservation Area and in the Derwent Valley Mills World Heritage Site. It's one of the late 18th, early 19th century mill workers' houses. The proposal is for a reconfiguration of a single-storey rear extension and roof alterations, as mentioned. So what you have before you is the front elevation, but the proposals are to the rear, and it's in relation to the wall that you can see to the right hand side of the blue door, and also the extension behind. You will note there is currently a satellite dish seen on the photograph that seems to be unauthorised. So in terms of the proposal, here is the ground floor existing and the ground floor proposed plan. So as you can see, the lobby is where the current doorway nearest the wall, that is being changed, that is proposed to be changed to a window, and then the entrance door just inside the lobby is being removed, as is a window, and an existing beam is going to be checked in terms of to span and making a more open plan arrangement between the dining room and the kitchen. There's also reconfiguration within the extension itself, with a wall being removed and the installation of the kitchen within the extension. The photographs that you see to the right hand side of your screen, the top right shows the current storeroom and slope of the roof away from the current wall, the inside of the current wall, and the current adjoining extension. The photograph bottom right obviously shows the entrance. The roof changes that are mentioned. Here's the existing and proposed roof plan, and you can see that the small slope is being proposed to be removed, and the roof monopits stretching from the main building to the wall is proposed to be done in one monopitch. There's some, you will have noticed there's some side elevations on the application file. There's to the left hand side is the existing, to the right the proposed, so you can see the door being changed to window, a new window being installed, and a 4-panel door being proposed, and also the isometric illustration bottom right. So in summary, in terms of the description and the impact on the wall, just to clarify, the actual main wall structure, including the gate, is not affected. However, the proposal is to raise 3.5 feet wide, it's been described to me as, 6 courses high. So there's a slight increase on that wall above that blue bin, basically, to be in line with the wall of the neighbouring, the rendered wall height to the neighbouring property. And this is to hide the mono pitch behind it. So that concludes the summary of this application.
Lovely. Thank you, Chloe. That was all very clear, and thank you for those the illustrations that you've chosen. They make it much easier to understand what's being proposed there. So can I invite any comment on that proposal, please?
David Ling here.
Yes, David.
I've really got some questions really for Chloe. First of all, the existing buildings look relatively new. I presume they were given permission originally. Is that right, Chloe?
I understand so. It's just the satellite dish that there seems to be a question about.
Right. Okay. Well, I'm sure that can also be dealt with by either enforcement or persuasion. So to clarify, there must be some loss of the original fabric in this application, but I'm not entirely clear what. There's a loss of part of the wall between this extension and the main building. Is that original fabric, or is that a later wall?
From the plans, it seems to suggest that it is original.
Right. Well, that really wouldn't be a good idea. I certainly don't like the idea of this addition to that ancient wall which runs across the back of the yard. So I would think I would object on those grounds.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any other comments? No.
Yes, this is Chris Wardrell here.
Hello, Chris.
Again, well, the design and heritage statement here is even worse than the Green Lane one, and I think that there's a need for builder recording, probably level 2 builder photograph. That's photographic and a short written report. If the proposal is approved.
Thank you.
Chair Paul McLaughlin. A question for Chloe. Chloe, the two opposing pitches, could they not be simply combined with a valley gutter between the two pitches? Why do they have to continue the one as a mono pitch and then hide it with the parapet wall?
This is as presented to us, as supplied. So this is what has been submitted to us for consideration.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, I feel that taking on board David's comment as well about the increase in the height of that wall, if it were to be revised, and I can't see that it's a particularly complicated thing to do, if it were revised to retain the angles of the pitches but combine the two roofs with a valley, I think that would be a far more successful solution, and it would keep the height of that wall, assuming that there is enough headroom within that building, which seemed to have been used for residential used previously. So I can't see there'll be an issue with that. Perhaps it could be investigated.
I suspect
I think that mono pitch at the end is
closest
lower.
to the alleyway is probably a former loo.
Yeah, I think it's a bit lower, isn't it? The headroom in there. I may be wrong. I'm assuming that's why they've done it. But I mean, my reading of it is I agree that the heritage statement is thin, to say the least. Doesn't tell you very much at all. But I thought the proposals were fairly modest. They're not seeking to change the footprint at all. It's just modifications to the roof. I agree with Paul. If it could be done without changing the mono pitch on the end, then that would be better. But in the end, it's a modest change to the stepping wall, which steps up along that route anyway. So I was less concerned about that. And I take the point about the opening in the historic. Previously was the main wall to the principal building. I guess that could be made narrower to help with the reading of the historic fabric, as opposed to the full width. But I was less concerned than others.
Yeah, there is the removal of a small length of internal wall, isn't there, which presumably just it was described as making an open plan situation. It is a fairly small footprint house, isn't it? And I suppose in some respects, if it makes it more workable, as living accommodation, with only modest alteration, then I suppose it's something that we perhaps might consider. I take your point, David. I mean, there is some loss, but it is relatively minor. Having heard comments from others, David, do you feel that we could not object to the proposal, but ask for some reconsideration of the roof solution that's been proposed thus far, as well as, of course, the other matters of requiring some improved heritage statement, and also some discussion about the satellite dish. How do you feel, David, about this sort of loss of fabric issue?
Well, I'm mostly concerned about the wall, because bearing in mind this is a World Heritage Site.
Yeah.
These cottages were designed for workers. That wall is extremely important in the interpretation of the site. It's not just an ordinary conservation area. This is, and it can be seen from the back.
Yeah.
So I would resist strongly that increase in height, because you're adding modern fabric on top of an ancient wall.
Yeah.
And you would lose that interpretation of the wall. So
okay.
It is a very important matter.
Okay, so I think to summarise, then we have concerns about the scheme and would object to it in its present form, but feel that there could be some discussion that would come to a different solution from a roof point of view, and that would remove the necessity to increase the height of the rear wall, bring it in line with the property on the higher side. So is that okay? Are we all happy that we're not?
No, you've forgotten the building recording, Chris.
Yes, well, I did mention those, Chris, that they need to be dealt with separately. The building recording and the satellite dish, I think, need to be dealt with. They're not. Yeah, I think we've got a note of those as well. Thank you, Chris. Okay, are we all happy with that then? That we have concerns and object to the proposal as it stands at the moment, and we've made a suggestion as to how that could be improved. And just to reiterate, the heritage statement needs to be made more complete before any decision could be taken, and also there needs to be some discussion about the satellite dish. Okay, all happy on that?
Yep.
Yes, Chair.
Good, thank you. Right, so moving on then to Northgate House, 46 Friegate, Agard Street, frontage to both highways. Change of use to 166 bedroom cluster studio student accommodation, together with replacement of windows and doors, internal alterations, formation of point faces for staff cycle storage and refuse store. So Chloe, could you just describe this proposal to us, please, which I understand was the previous use was a tax office. Thank you.
That's correct. Thank you. Yes, as you can see on the slide in front of you, this shows you the location. 46 Friegate, on the lower picture is Grade 2 listed building in Friegate Conservation Area, thought to date from the mid-19th century. The building that's attached to the rear is a former tax office building built in the 1970s. So I'm going to run through a number of slides now. I've included this slide just to show, because I thought this one was useful, and I'm sure you've seen it online, the way in which the more recent building is connected to the rear of the number 46 Friegate. Obviously this was done some time ago in the 1970s when that modern building was constructed. And you can see the lift and the changes to the roof form in doing so. Here's some photographs of Northgate House. In terms of the changes, in terms of the elevation of the main number 46 Friegate, there's nothing proposed to be changed apart from some window repainting. To the tax office building, to the exterior, they're proposing to replace the current aluminium windows with new grey powder coated aluminium windows and also doors. And there's a number of spandrel panels in an opaque where there's proposed subdivision internally, etc. And there's also, as part of this proposal, grey painting of the concrete frame. So once again, just giving you an idea and a reminder of the elevations. And here's the section through, which shows that it's lower ground level onto Agard Street, but it's actually first floor at Agard Street, but ground floor to Friegate. So just to get to show you the different floors as they are currently. So in terms of the lower ground floor, this is the current proposal to convert the existing building, and there is some landscaping areas, as you can see on the right-hand side plan. So this is the existing plan on the left and the proposed on the right. Just focusing on the more significant part of the building on Friegate. This is showing the lower basement, or the basement level of that building, just to show that there isn't any changes proposed other than the different uses as highlighted on the right hand side. Within this building, which I have visited, and the photographs here are representative of that front part of that building that fronts onto Friegate. As you can see, there's no skirting boards. Obviously, there are sash windows onto Friargate. There's suspended ceiling, but as you can see, there's been quite a lot of change within this building. So running through quickly now, and just highlighting that there was a very limited heritage statement and heritage impact assessment on this one, and there will be a need for more information in terms of looking above the suspended ceiling and checking that there isn't anything hidden of importance, and also assessment where there's some subdivision being proposed. So existing and proposed on the first floor. So this is the number of cluster rooms, flats with some communal areas, as you can see. Once again, focusing on the front part of the building on Friargate, you can see that there are proposed a number of studio flats, some double, some single, and this means some subdivision within these areas. The level of detail is relatively sparse in that the layouts of the kitchen and the shower rooms, etc., haven't been included, nor have the pipe runs, the drainage, vents, flues, whether there's any fire partitioning, sound, what M&E are being proposed, that sort of thing. So there is some information missing currently. In terms of the second and third floor, the plans are the same. So this is what's proposed in the main Northgate house and in the front part. Just focusing again, once again, there is some subdivision, and I guess this building was subdivided at some point in the past. However, this hasn't been assessed. So whether this, yes, so just to mention that, but that assessment hasn't been made. But there is some subdivision to divide into different studios. Fourth floor. This is the arrangement, slightly different to the lower floors, and just focusing. There's a proposed circulation space. There is an existing lift, and there's 2 double studios proposed within that floor. And then just for completeness, the top floor, which is the 5th floor, and that's to the front part, that's the plant, to the rear part of the roof slope. Just to round off, these are the proposed landscaping to Agard Street and to the side of the building, and that's a summary of these proposals.
Thank you, Chloe. That's very clear. Can I invite comment then on the proposal? Has anyone got any comments on the proposal? It's a much altered.
Chloe, it's Ian Goodwin, Chairman.
Yes, thank you, Ian.
Am I right in thinking that when this building was built, it was exempt from planning because it was a Crown building?
Yes, apparently so.
Right. Has there been any attempt to improve the building in these proposals, apart from the entrance area?
Well, obviously in terms of the landscaping outside,
Yeah.
but in terms of inside, obviously there's some subdivision, but that is as the proposals are. That's what's being presented to us.
The outside of the building, Chloe, has any effort been made to improve the external appearance of the building?
As you will have noted on the elevation drawings online, it does talk about repainting of the windows.
Yeah. But I think what the committee perhaps need to ask themselves is, would they have granted that building planning permission if it was in front of us now? No. No.
Sorry, it's Mike Carr, Chair.
Yes, thank
There's
you.
no way I would have granted that building planning permission. It's of the same era as the stuff we used to have on Traffic Street. And if I remember at the time, the Secretary of State was giving Nicholas Ridley would give permission to anything that he thought would make a bob.
Unless it was in his constituency.
Yeah.
If it was a tax building, it'd certainly make a bob or two, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
Mark?
that's right. Yeah, it's horrid.
Yeah.
But it's there.
Yes, and it's been there for
Well, that's we've got to deal with what we've got rather than what we'd like to be there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Today we are faced with a proposal that we judge, and that's what we need to comment on.
Is it just on that basis, though? Is there anything you think that they could do to improve the external appearance of the building?
As a non-professional, Chair, I can't see anything you could do other than just making it clean and tidy. It's not that out of keeping with all the other monstrous buildings that's going up along Agard Street.
In terms of height and so on, it's in character, isn't it?
Yeah.
Notwithstanding the fact that it is there, and on the positive side, I think the improvements to the street in terms of the greening will help. At the moment, it's a pretty kind of empty, vacuous, hard space, and there is some promise of at least some tree planting and some greening of that frontage, which I think will help.
Yeah, I agree
in
with
answer
that.
to Ian's point, there's an entrance extension, I suppose, and there's some changes to the fenestration so that the ribbon windows windows and opaque panels, I think, if I'm reading it right.
Yes.
But I think there's a good point there that perhaps more could have been done to make more of the building. But it is there, and it is what it is. So I was rather focused on at least trying to improve the setting to its immediate setting with some planting and tidying up that frontage.
Chair Paul McLaughlin. I agree with what Chris has just said. The fact that we have got some quite intense development proposed up and down Agard Street, the respite that open space will actually give to Agard Street, I think, is fairly important. It's a bit of a double-edged sword, because if the building were to be taken away and a new building proposed, we might get something that comes closer to Agard Street frontage. It's a difficult one to call, but as you say, we've got to judge what we've seen today.
Yes. Thank you, Paul. Yes, and it's been helpful that Chloe's been able to, despite current restrictions, been able to visit the site and have a look in the older part of the building to see, as she's described to us, that it's been stripped out very much in the scheme in the 1960s. So we're reassured that we're not now losing anything further in respect of the Friargate part of the site. Okay, so it sounds then as though there is not any objection to the scheme, but
Chris,
But
there is information required. Sorry,
Chair, sorry to interrupt.
Can I just say that this is another building where I know it's been very heavily knocked about, and probably much of the historic interest has been destroyed in the 60s. But I think it's still appropriate to ask for a level 2 record of the building.
Okay.
In connection with this particular proposal.
Okay, and then David, you were going to say something.
Yes, it's just that Chloe had mentioned the suspended ceilings, and that checks need to be made to see if there's things like cornicings and original fabric there.
Yes.
So I think that's really what should be concentrated on, and to make sure that any remaining fabric of historic interest should be retained.
Yes, that's right. Chloe did mention there was more information required above suspended ceilings, and also in respect of the detailing of the facilitation of kitchen and bathroom installation, vents, etc. So, we can note those, and we can include Chris's comment regarding the level 2 record being required. But no objection to the scheme overall. Okay. We've noted the environmental attribute of the scheme in terms of that greening of Agard Street as well. Okay. If we could move on then to the next site, which is 18 Agard Street, which is the demolition of the premises and the erection of student accommodation comprising 32 apartments, and there is some making good of the rear of 42 Friargate, installation of a fire escape, and other details, bin, cycle, store, and so on, and setting out of parking and landscaping. Chloe, can you just run us through the detail of this one, please?
Yes, certainly. What you should see in front of you is the location of this one, and it will be familiar to many of you. As you'll probably remember, that previous schemes have come forward to us and been considered by this committee in 2018-19. So this is a planning application, a listed building application. Previous proposals to retain this mid-20th century building, which is attached to a Grade 2 star listed building on Friargate, which is number 42. So I'm going to go through the previous scheme as well as showing you some photographs of the existing. So just to remind you, these are some photographs. The top right hand shows the way in which it joins number 42 Friargate, 42 being the rendered building, and then bottom left is the view from Pickford's house of the current building. I should just mention that there is an approved scheme, an extant scheme on this site, so it was granted permission, but it hasn't been implemented, and that's the detail of it that you can see on your screen. So these are the elevations which show the existing building being retained, the first 2 floors, a further brick clad floor, and then a aluminium cladding clad floor to the top floor. Obviously you'll see on the next plan how there is a fire escape stair to the rear of the Friargate property, and that was given permission, and the making good to the rear of that building through this particular scheme. In terms of the floor plans or the layout, these can be shown on this slide. You can see highlighted in blue the already given permission location of the escape stair for number 42 Friargate, and the layout of the previous scheme, which I did have a small extension to it, and also the existing proposed layout, which, as you will see, follows the same footprint, and the landscaping also follows the same layout as before. So moving on to the proposed scheme, I've put on the next few slides the existing, and you can see a photograph, and the now proposed. So this proposal demolishes the existing structure and builds a new structure in its place, of which the first 3 floors are brick clad and the top is copper clad. You'll notice on the bottom left that there is a slight lift overrun, and there's obviously a proposed street scene from Agard Street bottom right, which hasn't been updated to include that lift shaft. Here's the proposed side elevation, and once again you'll note the brick cladding and the copper cladding, and a number of solar panels to the roof along this part of the building, both above the second floor to the rear and along the top. Once again, another elevation, proposed rear elevation of number 42, just clarifying the details of proposals that you would have seen online. Just looking at the plan and obviously the arrangement inside the building is a number of studios, flats with en-suites, etc. And the roof plan shows 52 solar panels to the top roof and 6 to the lower roof. And you can see the lift shaft overrun marked on the plan, and also 2 smoke vents. And then there's these 2 visuals that have been submitted showing the brick and the copper cladding. So that's the view from Agard Street, and also you can appreciate the landscaping proposed, and also a view being generated from the possible view being viewed from the rear of Pickford's house, which of course is grade 1. So that's the end of the summary for this application.
Thank you, Chloe. Can I invite comment on the scheme?
Hello, Chair. It's David Ling here.
Yes, David, thank you.
This is, to my mind, a considerable improvement on the previous application, which has been approved. It also provides a little bit of green space at the front, which is welcome. Mm-hmm. I also feel that the size, the massing of the building is okay. And it's a shame that the building on the other side that doesn't match it, quite frankly, that has been approved against our advice. But yeah, generally speaking, I'm pretty happy with it.
Thank you, David. Are there any other comments?
No, Chair, it's Mike Carr. I agree with everything that David's just said. It's a shame it doesn't match the one on the other side. But yeah, I like it. Yeah.
I just had one comment, Chair, about materials.
Yes.
Like colleagues, I think the scale and form and everything is much better suited to this context. But I did think the use of copper, particularly at the rear, and so much of it, seems to be unnecessarily drawing attention to it. It's not really a focal landmark building in any sense. So I think it would be better if it was just treated in a more restrained manner. Whether that's all in brick or what, I don't mind, but I don't think the copper doesn't seem to me to be appropriate. It's not necessarily characteristic of this area.
Chair, can I just add that my agreement to that? I think Chris is right. I think it's a bit too much copper. The other thing is the copper going to be treated with anti-patination oil? The same as the copper that's on the university building on the corner, so that it retains its copper look and doesn't go green.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Any other comments? No.
Chair, Paul McLaughlin.
Yes.
I accept what Chris and Ian were saying, but I think if that building becomes a mass of brickwork with no contrasting materials, I think it will be a little bit too heavy in appearance. So I think some refinement and contrasting materials is right. I'm not sure that the proposal that they put forward at the moment is as good as it could be. I think there needs to be some refinement of detail and possibly looking at some other material other than copper, because it is, particularly looking from 41 Friegate, it is going to be rather bright. So I think something slightly more subdued would be appropriate.
Okay.
But other than that, I think, yeah, the proposals, that they have good proportions, the massings are quite acceptable, so that's all my comment. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Right, if that concludes the comments, then thank you. Yeah, so well, it's no closer to Pickford House. There is the green, has been mentioned, the green area in the frontage, and the scale of the building and so on and design is appropriate in its context, and I suppose it is an improvement on the scheme that could be implemented, presumably from previous approval, which still exists. So the concern then that's been raised in discussion is the use of the contrasting copper material on the predominantly on the fourth floor, and so we've no objection to the scheme, but we would ask that the detailing of the facing material in respect of that contrasting material could be looked at again, and perhaps with discussion with officers, a more subdued approach could be achieved. Okay, thank you. I think that's it. Are you okay with that, Lindsay?
Yep, absolutely fine.
Lovely.
Thank you.
So we can move on then to 24 Iron Gate, and this is well, there's alterations in connection with the change of use to an office use at ground floor, and 4 apartments also. I think there's some removal of petition wall, of new petitions. So Chloe, could you just describe that one to us, please? Thank you.
Yes, certainly. Yes, as you say, this is 24 Iron Gate, Grade 2 listed building within the city centre conservation area, thought to be dated late 18th century with 19th century and late 20th century additions, as you'll see later. Quite an important building, as I'm sure some of you will be able to add to. It was built as a business premises for John Whitehurst, the clockmaker, and also, and that was in the 18th century, and then later occupied by Richard Keane, the photographer. So this is a planning application, a listed building application. The illustrations in front of you on the first slide of the PowerPoint show the very narrow frontage to Iron Gate, with the workshop range extending along the very narrow plot. This is the Iron Gate elevation, which almost faces the cathedral, and just a bit of a reminder of the signage, which is under the green sign, for those of you who can remember that. And just some general photographs that were submitted with the application of the building. Obviously there's an elevation within the archway showing the glass blocks that were used in the middle, top middle photograph. Some general photographs of the amazing windows on the other side elevation. There has been a heritage statement and heritage impact assessment been submitted with this one, and it is relatively detailed, very detailed. Obviously it goes into the detail. I'm sure you've all looked at it in terms of it's looked at the phasing of different components of the building, and also looked by floor at original layout and those which have been adapted over time, and in terms of walls, the date of different walls within the building,
Yep.
which is very helpful. There is a useful 1968 plan, and this is quite useful, I'm sure you've found, that shows at that snapshot the walls and the staircases that have subsequently been added to this building, which now the applicant now wishes to remove. So this is quite helpful. There's also a useful room schedule that shows photographs and a narrative regarding what's proposed alongside it.
Yeah.
In terms of the general arrangement, there's the office on the ground floor, which runs front to the rear of the almost to the rear of the building, and there's entrance to the flat 1 at the front, and then flats 2, 3 and 4 partway along the side, and there's another entrance for the office to the rear. The front elevation, there is some repainting proposed, but overall the main part of this proposal is the windows, which you can see highlighted in blue just to highlight them. There's a need for a means of escape from the front elevation of this building, so the application highlights, and so there is proposals to replace the current casement windows which are on the first floor. Most of them are fixed, but there are some opening lights to the upper lights of those first floor windows, to a sash arrangement to ensure means of escape. To the south elevation, there's some minor change to create an access. So what's being shown here is the change of a window to a door, along with some lights and a bell, etc. To the elevation which houses the glass blocks, the proposal, you can see, is to change those windows, and they're looking at sash windows within those. There's also the addition of 2 roof lights and a window to this elevation. There's also a slight change on the east elevation, elongating an existing casement window and installing a timber sash window. In terms of the ground floor, which you would have had a look at, there's quite a lot of analysis in terms of the significance of different spaces, the walls, and then on the right here is the proposals plan for the ground floor. And here are some photographs within that space that are representative. There's also the same for the first floor, so you can see specifically where certain walls are being, of certain ages, are being changed, and etc., which I think is quite useful. It also, on this floor, proposes the removal of 2 staircases, but as they're not shown on the 1968 plan, they're both modern, and so that's been a useful analysis. Here are some photographs of the modern stairs. Of more interest to the rear range, where those amazing cast iron, those windows to the rear, is obviously an area which doesn't look as if it's been occupied for some time, but I put these photographs in just as an aid memoir. It's quite an interesting spaces. To the second floor, once again, the analysis has been gone through, and you'll have seen this online in terms of the extent of the changes proposed. And to the third floor, showing that there's relatively limited changes proposed. So that's the summary of this application. So obviously there are slight changes to stud partitions and the installation of bathrooms and en suites that I should highlight. So I think that gives a sort of very quick summary of this scheme.
Right, thank you very much, Chloe. Yes, it is a very interesting building, isn't it? When I'd looked at the application, which was a few days ago, I think there was a missing elevation, but that, from what you've just said, is now resolved. So we've got full information available. So can I invite comment on the proposal, please? Has anyone got any issues to raise?
Chair, Paul McLaughlin.
Yes, thank you, Paul.
I think it's a very commendable and very comprehensive scheme. I think it gives new life to what has to be considered one of Derby's most important buildings, particularly looking at it from the occupancy point of view of previous occupants. So, no, I'm totally in support of it.
Yeah, thank you.
I would support that.
Yeah,
I think it's been pretty carefully worked out. It's quite a complex conversion, actually, but it's been cleverly worked out. There's a range of really quite interesting living spaces in there, including a duplex and one apartment's access from the front. All the others, including the others at the front, at the upper floors, are accessed from the back. Yeah. So there's quite a clever arrangement that maintains as much historic fabric as possible, yet creates some quite interesting and attractive apartments. So I think it's a good scheme, and the supporting information is extremely thorough and comprehensive, as has been said.
Yep. Okay.
No, thank you, Chair. It's Mike Carr. Yeah, no, I think it's a nice looking building, and it'd be nice to have some people living at that end of town. It's lovely.
Yes, absolutely. Yep. Okay, thank you, Mike. Right. Well, if that.
No. It is an important building, and it's not only is it the site of an 18th century clockmaker, but it's also one of the original Burgess plots of the town. So I suspect, although I've not ever been in the building, that it may well contain older fabric than is indicated on the listing. There is a definite need here for building recording, and in this case I would think that a level 3, which is analysis of the building as well as the photographic record, would be appropriate.
Okay. I'm sure no one would disagree with that. Chris, thank you. Does that conclude comment on this scheme, with general acceptance and, in fact, pleasure that the scheme is being put forward? Okay, so there's no objection then. That's our official way that we deal with these things. So no objection to the scheme, and there is this requirement for building recording to level 3 as suggested by Chris. Okay, thank you. There we go. We can move on then. So we now have a declaration of interest in respect of 2223 Sadlergate. Chris, we do normally just have a exchange of information after the meeting, so if it's at all possible for you to return, then you may well do, but if that proves impossible or difficult, then we will understand that to be the case. But I think the requirement from a declaration of interest point of view is that if you move away from the screen, then we can, and are not participating in the discussion, then we can't be influenced by either anything you've said or any facial expression that you would make. So it might just be that it's a matter of moving away, from the camera and so on, because obviously it is a public meeting, and you're as entitled to know know what has happened as anyone else, but not to participate in the meeting itself. So okay, well, in case you don't come back, thank you for your attendance, just in case we don't speak again. If we could ask you to leave, is left in some way anyway. There we go. Thank you. Right. So we're on to 2223 Sadler Gate. And the proposal is for internal and external alterations to form 2 residential units on the upper floors and subdivision of the ground floor. So Chloe, could you just run us through the details of the scheme, please?
Yes, certainly. This building, 2223, Grade 2 listed building in the city centre conservation area, thought to date from the mid-19th century. This is a listed building application only. There has been a certificate of lawfulness to change or submitted for the upper floors from retail to 2 flats. That's just to obtain confirmation that there actually is permitted development rights to convert to this use in this particular area. So that application isn't before us, but it's the listed building application that is. So in terms of the buildings, you can see that the building that we're looking at is the former Superfi shop, which is number 22 to 23, which has currently the green shop front. So that's just to identify the building. To the front elevation, there's very limited proposals just to fit restrictors to the bottom sash to make sure that sill heights, etc., satisfy building regulations. To the southeast elevation to the courtyard, as you can see, there's a bit of change proposed, which includes reducing the width of one window and installing a new double glazed timber casement to both of those first floor windows. There's some fence, etc., as you can see, and there's a new opening proposed, a new window opening, and a change to the door design to that elevation also. Going on to the northeast elevation, there is a little change in terms of a reconfiguration of the fire escape, the removal of the door and window configuration being replaced with a door, and the replacement of an existing casement window with a new double glazed timber casement window. Also some slight excavation to the rear, as you can see, to the proposal's elevation, and the installation of a new door at that lower level. Moving swiftly on to the southwest elevation, the only change here is to lower the sill level of those 3 windows to the first floor, and once again the installation of new double glazed timber casement windows. Just looking quickly at the inside of the building and what's proposed as part of the changes to this particular building to form 2 new residential units to the first and second floor. The main change within the ground floor space is a removal of what looks to be a modern staircase, which I'll show you photographs of shortly, which is located, here's the existing plan on the left and the proposed plan on the right. This is going to continue to be a retail unit. There's some blocking up at N2 to make 2 different spaces, as you can see. Here's the staircase that's proposed to be removed that I highlighted to you. Yeah. Here's some general views of the space at first floor level. Once again, spaces that are representative, and to the first floor level, what's being proposed is to retain the historic stair at the front, nearing the front of the building, converting the front space into a living kitchen area, create some subdivision, obviously, repairing the floor where the staircase is being removed. There's a corridor running down and some subdivision to create a bedroom, ensuite shower room, the living kitchen area to one unit, and then the living kitchen area, bedroom, additional bedroom to the other unit. To the second floor, as you can see, there is some slight change in the removal of modern stud-work, a bit of a rearrangement of that, and installing a shower, an ensuite within an existing store. So here's some photographs just showing you the spaces on that second floor. Some window and door details have also been submitted, showing the double glazed proposals, and the door with bead moulding and glazing detail. And that's the end of the summary of that application.
Right, thank you for that then, Chloe. Thank you also for the confirmation that the staircase that's being removed is a modern one, and that the historic staircase is not affected by the proposal. So that was now clear. So are there any comments on the scheme?
Thank you, Chair. It's Mike Carr. Yeah, I quite like it. I think they've done a pretty good job within the constraints of the existing building and so on. I wasn't paying complete attention when Chloe said something about narrowing one of the windows, and I thought she was talking about the front elevation, which nearly gave me a heart attack, but she wasn't. So, no, I like it, Chair.
Yep. Okay, thank you. Are there any concerns at all, or are we feeling this is
I know it's a theme that I've repeated throughout this meeting, but the building is listed as 18th century. I suspect that it just may well have had a front, an 18th century brick front placed on it at some point. But again, this is quite an old plot. Exactly what the footprint of the original plot might have been, I wouldn't like to say. There's clearly need for builder recording.
Thank you, Chris.
I looked at this fairly quickly, but did I fail to notice a heritage statement, or was there not one?
Yeah.
Yes, there was a heritage statement. It was there was actually one that covered both 21 and 22-23 Sadlergate, but yes, it was online.
Okay, right, thanks. It's just I failed to notice it, but presumably it didn't. The possibility of it being older than 18th century wasn't mentioned, was it?
Sorry, Chris, I can't recall
possibility that it be older
whether it was.
Century wasn't mentioned, was it? It's just a general point about the heritage statements. According to the NP, the planning policy framework, people drawing up these things should at least consult the HER, the Historic Environment Record, and I'm not seeing one today that does that.
Thank you, Chris.
Chair Paul McLaughlin. I think it's a comprehensive and quite good scheme. Chloe, question for you. Where they're lowering the ground level adjacent to the new door, what's the proposal for the flanking walls either side, retaining structure?
The details of that proposal is as you see in the the elevation drawing that I showed on screen. So there's no other details other than the banking earth either side that it seemed to show.
Since Paul's reminded me of that, in addition to the level 3 recording, which I think is necessary in this case, I think there needs to be a watching brief when this earthworks are being carried out.
Thank you.
An archaeological watching brief, that is.
Thank you. Any other comment, or are we happy with it? Seemed to be a fairly well worked out scheme, and those of us that were able to look at the heritage statement, it did include quite a bit of detail. Okay, right. So it's no objection to the scheme, and there is a request that there is level 3 building recording, and with the addition of a watching brief when excavation works are occurring. Okay, thank you. That concludes the final item on the agenda. I thank everyone for their attendance at the meeting, and also to officers both in front of house and behind the scenes who've helping to facilitate the technology, etc. Thank you very much for everyone who's participated in whatever way. So thank you for that. So I'll close the meeting now and just remind members that